So our objective today is I can describe functional relationships in a variety of ways. This is preparing you for the end of course exam, and this is our first thing that we're going to talk about, our functional relationships. So you picked up the little packet today in which you have a chart and a coordinate plane in the top left corner, and you are using these vocabulary words that are listed in order to fill in that coordinate plane. So let's look at the coordinate plane. Remember, to be a functional relationships, your x's cannot repeat. So we are going to plug in these particular things into our blanks. Our x-axis is the horizontal axis. So this is our x-axis here, or where we get our x's. X is also the domain. X is also the independent variable. I-N-D-E-P-E-N-D-E-N-T. I got it. Independent. And we also have the input. Remember when we talked about the x's, is that it has the IN in every single word. So we have the x-axis, or x values, the domain, the independent, and also the input. We'll look at the y. It's the vertical axis, so this is our y-axis. It also represents the range. Also represents our dependent variable. And it also represents our output. Yes, we have already done this. We are reviewing. We're going to review everything we've done from day one, because that is what is covered on your end of course exam. Yes. So the last thing is to name the quadrants. Remember, you start in the first quadrant, which is the top right quadrant. Everything in this quadrant, your x and your y values are positive. Makes us happy. Second quadrant, we go to the left. Our x coordinate is positive. Sorry, x coordinate is negative, y coordinate is positive. Third quadrant is down below it. Our x coordinate's negative, our y coordinate's negative. And then fourth quadrant, we're using Roman numerals. X coordinate is positive, y coordinate's negative. For some of you, you'll have those things memorized. Others, I know I just look at the axis to tell myself that. So we are looking at how many different ways can we describe a functional relationship or relationship. So first way is using a coordinate plane. Now we're going to move on to mapping. Again, same vocabulary. We're just putting it in maps now. So when we do mapping, the x's go in our first circle, and then our y's go in the second circle. And then we are going to, when we do a map, we have to show where does it start and where does it end. Otherwise, the map doesn't work. So the x goes with the y. So range is our next letter, or our next word. Does our range go with the x or the y? Does the range go with the x or the y? It goes with the y. Okay, so same as what we did in your coordinate plane. If you look in your coordinate plane, here are all the y's that are related. Here are all your x's that are related. So if I have the range, I want to know what is its corresponding x word. Domain. Domain is correct. And again, in order to be a map, we have to show where it starts, where it ends. Okay, then we have output. Is output an x or a y? It is a y. So input is the x that goes with it. And again, start, finish. Last, we have the dependent and independent. Independent goes with the x. And I can't spell it today. I-N-D-E-P-E-N-D-E-N-T. Do y'all know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, so then dependent is the y. It is old, but I like it. And then we, again, map. So we have a coordinate plane, and now we also have a map that we can show how our relationship are related. Right, next we have an ordered pair in the tables. So again, we're going to do the exact same thing. We start with the x, and it's ordered paired. is corresponding y. Output is our y, which means input is our x. Range and domain go together. Domain goes with the x, has the in for inputting, and range goes with the y. And then we have independent and dependent. So we have an ordered pair, and then we copy it right on over to the table. So x, y, input, output, domain and range. It is a lot of copying, and you're writing the same thing over and over again. Independent and dependent. So yet another way that we can see a relationship between two numbers. So we've done the coordinate plane, we've done mapping, now we've done ordered pairs and tables because they're very similar to each other. And our last thing then is function notation. So in function notation, what goes inside is our x. Can't write my x. And then what is on the outside is our y. Same variables, same thing. So we have domain and range. Domain is on the inside. Range is on the outside. Input and output. Input is on the inside, is what we put into our function. And then what comes out is the output. And then last but not least, we have our independent. Again, it's on the inside, and dependent, that's on the outside. So different ways of seeing a relationship between variables or numbers. We now have a coordinate plane, you have mapping, you have the table and the ordered pairs, and now we also have function notation. So you're going to see these all 4 different ways, especially when we get to working with our practice problems. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is, now that you remember what words go with what words go with what words, now we're going to put it to a problem. You're given an equation, and this is the equation where N represents the number of DVDs ordered and C represents the total cost. We want to describe the relationship. So when it's describing the relationship, it's saying, I want you to take this equation and put it in words, and the words that we're using are the words, the vocabulary words we used on the front page. Now, your questions that we deal with on the end of course exam, most of them are multiple choice. This would be a multiple choice type of question. And so we talked before about the letter that's on the outside. We have a letter on the outside of the equal sign, and we have a letter on the inside of the equal sign. If we use the words that we used before, our inside is our input, also our domain, also our independent. This is where the IN comes in. So outside would be, this is our output, which is also our range, and also our dependent. And the way that the questions are asked is that we can see that C depends on, because that equal sign tells us it depends on N. And so one of the questions could be, instead of C, we have to say C represents the total cost. So one of the questions could ask, total cost depends on, and then N represents the number of DVDs. The other question that could be asked is, which one of those variables is your independent variable? And which one would you say? C or N? Which variable, C or N, is your independent variable? N. The other question could be asked, which one is your dependent variable? C. Okay, so if you set it up and look at your outside variable, inside variable, and remember your vocabulary, then you can answer all those types of questions. All right, let's look at the next one. What equation would be used to generate this table of values? And then the second one is what linear function includes the points. So for this, we are going to need a calculator. So I want you to pause for a second and get a calculator. Well, we are given our table, and what we're asked to find is an equation. So we're still looking at, again, relationships. And anytime you're given a table or point, you can always find a relationship or an equation using the calculator and using stat. So as we go through this, especially if you do not remember, this actually is in your spiral, but if you don't have your spiral or you don't remember, I want you to write these steps down. So the first thing we're going to do is input the table into stat. So we're going to hit the stat button. And then we're going to hit enter because we want to choose number 1 for edit. Okay, so stat button, find your alpha, go 2 over, and then choose number 1 for edit. And now we're going to input our X values go into L1, our Y values go into L2. And the great thing about this is you can pick, you only need 2 points. We're going to go ahead and put them all in, but you only need 2 points. So X values, we have a -2, a -1, a 0, and a 1. And then our Y values, we have a 1, a 3, 5, and 7. So again, you go into stat, choose number 1. We're putting X into L1 and our Y's into L2. Everybody got that? Now we're going to go back to stat because now we want to use that information. So we hit the stat button again. This time we're going to arrow over to calc, C-A-L-C, because we want the calculator to calculate something for us. And we're going to choose number 4, which is linear regression. So when I choose number 4, we're going to scroll down. It's saying the first list, our X values are in L1. That is true. Our Y values are in L2. And we want to calculate. Depending on the calculator you have, if you have a TI-84 with the updated system, you need to scroll down to calculate. And then press enter. And what we see here is that it gives you the equation y equals ax plus b, but then it shows you what a is and what b is. So our equation is y equals, a is 2, b is 5. So one of your answers on the multiple choice question, if it says find the equation, will be y equals 2x plus 5. Or it could be written in function notation as f of x equals 2x plus 5. Okay, number 2 is exactly the same thing, except it's giving you points. The points are not in a table. So the first thing you need to do is set up a table. Just draw you a real quick table. Put you an X column and a Y column. Take the first point, and we're going to write it in our table. So -3, 1. Second point, write it in your table, -2, 4. So now this problem is exactly like the top one. We're going to put our X's in the L1 and our Y's in the L2. So let's go back to stat. We're going to hit, again, 1 for edit. This time I'm going to clear out what's in the column. And the way we clear it out, we go up to the top and press clear. Notice I didn't push delete, I pressed clear. Clear means I'm clearing out the list. If you press delete, it will actually delete your entire L1 and L2. So now it's cleared out. We're going to put in -3 for our L1 and a -2. These are X values. And then our y values, or corresponding y values, is 1 and 4. Check your numbers, negative 3, 1, negative 2, 4. Then we'll follow again, stat, go over to calc, and then linreg. So hit stat, arrow over to calc, number 4, gotta go all the way down to calculate, press enter. Y equals 3x plus 10, you got it. So, is tomorrow picture day? I don't recall. Okay, so anytime you're given 2 points, y'all, anytime you're given points, you remember you can use the calculator to come up with that equation. Anytime you're given points and all you need is 2, you can use it to come up with an equation. Okay, next one. These are words to equations. So, looking at your, again, in your spiral, you have a list of vocabulary that is used in order to translate your words into equations. And most of you are really good at this. So, vocabulary. 4 is a number. Less than tells you we're going to subtract, but it is also a switch word. Okay, so when we talk about switch, that means the number in front of the words will go behind it, and the ones behind the words will go in front. So it's minus, but a switch, so the 4 is going to go afterwards. And then it says the product of 3 and a number. We don't know what that number is, so we're going to call that x. And when we talk about product, that means multiply. So 3 and a number, the product of 3 and a number is 3x. This 3x is going to switch and go on the other side. So we start off with 3x minus 4. Is equal to, we love that because that's just the equal sign. And then a number decreased by 14. A number, we don't know what the number is, so we're going to let that be x. Decreased by, what do y'all think? Add, subtract, multiply, divide. It is subtract. We decrease it by 14. You have your equation. Again, remember, these are going to be multiple choice, so it's just a matter of can I pick out words that I know in order to match the equation that I know. All right, number 2, we have 2 times. So 2 is my number. Times means multiply. I'm going to use a dot to represent multiplication. The sum of a number and 4. Because sum, what does that tell you? That means add. Okay, but because it says sum of, that means I'm going to put it in parentheses. So the sum of a number and 4, that means we're going to add them. So is equal, that means we go to the other side, so we can write that. 2 times x plus 4 is equal to, now we have negative 3 times, so negative 3 times means multiply. The sum of, again, parentheses and a plus sign, a number and 4. So we have 2 times the sum of x plus 4. Sum of tells you put in parentheses. And then negative 3 times the sum of x plus 4. Okay, number 3, we have 15 more than 5 times the number is our equal. Okay, and more than, it does switch. So 15 more than 5 times the number. So 5 times the number would be 5x and 15. So we have 5x plus 15. Equals 2. It's the same as twice the number plus 6. So twice the number tells you take the number, multiply it by 2, and then plus 6. Okay, the last thing that we're doing has to deal with inequalities. And so they do represent functional relationships. And so we're going to talk about what is the inequalities, what does the graph look like. You do have this sheet also in your spiral, but just in case you've misplaced your spiral, we're going over it. So remember that this first sign looks like a funny letter L, so that tells me this is less than. I don't want to put less than there, I'm sorry. This means less than, and since it has a line with it, then it's or equal to. Since it has a line underneath, that means it is going to be a solid line. And because it's less than, it is going to be shaded below. So you'll have a solid line with the shading below. Or it could be a negative slope line with the shading below. So if the top one has a funny letter L for less than, then the other one has to be greater than. So this is greater than or equal to. That means, again, line underneath means it's solid. And since it's greater than, it's shaded above. So again, a solid line, the shading will be above. Could be a negative slope solid line with the shading above. Our third one looks like a funny L, so it's just less than. There's no line underneath it, so it's just less than. And since there's no line to say it's equal to, that means it's going to be a dashed line. And the shading is just like it was above. I'm sorry. The shading is just like it was before. When it's less than, it's shaded below. So this means our line will be dashed, and we will shade below that dashed line. Again, we could also have a negative sloped line that's dashed and shaded below. So the last one, this is greater than. There is no equal to sign, so it's just greater than. This is a dashed line because it doesn't have an equal to sign. And then this one is shaded above. So dashed line, shade above. Or I could have a negative slope line, shade above. So this concludes our review. Now we're going to do some problems like the end of course exam in order for you to get to practice.